how were you communicating with frontline employees in the past, and what were some of the challenges with those methods? I'll leave it there. However you want to do it, come off mute, raise your hand in the chat, however it works. But somebody, please let us know, what was life like before Team Sense? How were you communicating with your frontline?
I don't mind going first. Well, basically, how we was doing it before, of course, we used the posters, text messages, and it was only directed to one singular individual at the time. And then half of the time, people don't read posts. It don't matter where you post. You have a million things on the billboard and nobody ever paid no attention. So, they come back and ask you the same question. So I think now in the future that we use Team Sense in itself. So it resolved a lot of that because we could send out individual texts or we could send out a mass text. Definitely when it talking about our communication part with the whole entire group itself. So that communication factor was a benefit. You could single out the who you need, or you could do it as a group in itself. So that's how we utilized it before, because people do ask questions, even though you post it up and make those announcements and meetings. Half of the group ain't listening to what's going on anyway. So when you send out that text message, and I send it out at night too, so when they sleep and they're home relaxing. But it definitely was a benefit for the communication factor. That's how we definitely do it now.
Thank you for being the brave soul to come off of mute first, Sharieffe, and Deede. I saw you did as well. I'd love to hear from you in just a second. Sharieffe, while you've got the floor, man, how did you get a sense that it was working? So you said nobody reads the posts on the bulletin board anyway. How did you get a sense that using text message as a communication channel was effective and working for your frontline?
Well, the first effective part, when you send out text and then people come to you and they start asking you, okay, what did you mean? Or break it down, the definition, or get an understanding of what's going on. They was more aware of basically what's going on when they received that text message. And since we now in a generation where everybody loves using their cell phone and is attached to their hip, so it's a definite that they see it. So when they come through, when they don't understand something, they then start to ask that question about it. And we could rely and break it down for that clear understanding of what it meant if they didn't understand it. But we get a lot of questions, a lot of requests off of it, and a lot of events are shared through there. So they give their perspective on some of the things that we communicate from first and second shift, which tended to be a little hard communicating to, since everybody in the building leave, and most of the things happen on first shift than it does at night. So this way you can share all the information and keep that communication between both shifts, understanding so everything that we have going on.
So that makes a ton of sense. I hear the shift, the multiple shift being a challenge for sure. And I love that. I love that reaction of just like, hey, it starts a conversation, right? Like, I know this is working because employees are coming back to me with more questions, requesting more clarity. So it's starting a conversation. That makes a ton of sense. James, I see your hand up. Thank you for being so polite. And Deede, I also saw you come off mute first. And this is like a first in, first out methodology here. So Deede, what's on your mind? What were you doing before?
It's all right. You could have went with James, but here's what I'm going to paint this picture for you all. What we had at 1440 Foods was prior experience issues because we were new. I want you all to think about this. We had nothing when we took over our facility. We didn't have phone lines. We didn't have anything. So, and we had a handful of employees and they weren't even frontline yet. And we're thinking, how are we going to do this? So fast forward a little bit and we find ourselves with the opportunity to use the SMS text communications through Team Sense to our individuals. So it was a lifesaver because we didn't have phone line communication set up yet. So,
oh my gosh. Deede, I remember that a year and a half ago, and you were like, hey, Adam, we're going to have to move our meeting. Like, internet's getting installed. We're getting new phone. I remember you were doing it all. You were literally doing it all.
We were, absolutely. So there was our pain point. We had nothing.
and you had to do something. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that reminder. That's a ton of fun. How far you've come in a year and a half.
Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. James, how about you?
Thank you. For us, we really started from a different, avenue. When I came to Kenco, I've been in the 3PL industry for 20 years. And when I came to Kenco, TeamSense was really kind of positioned as optional for our network, meaning it was a tool that the supervisors and teams could use, but they didn't have to. And I operate with a little bit of a different mindset. So our posturing when I started was immediately, no, this is the line of communication, right? So perfect example was constantly being told, hey, I wasn't told I had to come in. My supervisor didn't tell me there was mandatory overtime. And I sort of said, well, you know what? We're going to do something a little different here. We're going to require everyone's enrolled into TeamSense during onboarding so that our streamlining of communication is as such. So when there's a mandatory overtime, mandatory day where we have to have someone come in, or hey, we've got an open shift with someone like to come in, we not only are able to broadcast that out to the entire site, but we now have the most important piece, a time-stamped documented conversation, so that when we had that associate who said, I never knew that there was overtime, well, now I have a communication trail that says differently. So for us, it's been a great way for us to bridge the communication gap. But certainly, I would say the prior to that, we were just doing emails, running out on the floor with paper and all those sort of things.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, I've lived that, that beautiful chaos that is manufacturing and logistics. James, not to put you on the spot here, but just you touched on some things that I think probably could lend itself to the second part of this question too, particularly around communications around overtime or open shifts. What happens when that communication doesn't get where it needs to go?
Oh, there's some pretty significant ramifications, right? Depending on the state that the associates work in, there could be some financial retribution involved there too, right? So we can take Georgia, for example, which has pretty lenient employment laws, but associate decides that, hey, I'm going to overlook this mandatory overtime requirement as a result of, allegedly not receiving that communication. Someone's not at work, then productivity is impacted because other team members are having to pick up the extra work. And then you go down this rabbit hole of, well, now we've got attendance issues. We go back and look, communication has been sent to this associate. TeamSense has been, for us, kind of a compliance managing tool, and that's really how I leverage it. Yes, it's great. It does a wonderful job at communicating out. Where there has always been an opportunity, though, at least from my position, has been, how do we use this in such a way that we close the gap from a compliance perspective and we're able to go on record that communication was provided to an employee, not just for the sake of making sure that the associate has what they need from a communication perspective, but also from a risk management perspective. How often has anyone on this call heard, I didn't get the memo, right? And then they rack up attendance points, and then they're terminated, and then you're in an unemployment hearing to go, hey, show us record that we communicated that to the associate. Well, in our group, we send out the attendance policy very frequently through TeamSense, just for that reason. And TeamSense has been the reason we've been able to win some of our unemployment claims, because the allegation was, well, I didn't know. Well, our documentation says differently.
Yeah, those are great examples, James. Thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's just a lot of different paths that you could have gone, and I appreciate you highlighting so many so quickly. I know Stuart is gonna probably message me to move on and Samantha, Marissa, I have not forgotten about you. I see your faces there. You're going to be first for the next one if you've got an answer. But Stuart, I'll let you kind of keep us moving along here.
Thanks. I appreciate it. So we're going to run through some of this stuff pretty quickly because this is not a surprise to any of you, but obviously frontline workers are not the same as office workers, and they have very particular needs and attributes that make communicating with them and organizing them particularly challenging and unique. Obviously, they often don't have email addresses issued by the company. They almost never have a company phone. They do not have a company device. You know, sometimes they have access to a computer at their site, but it's usually not enough for all of them. And there may be some technology challenges and barriers that prevent them from, you know, them all from being able to get the most value out of that. And then one thing that I think not everyone realizes, but I think, you know, a lot of our panelists and our customers have spoken to, which is, you know, they tend to be a little resistant to downloading apps from the company. They may just not feel like it. They may be uncomfortable because they're, you know, confused. They may not want to be tracked. They may, you know, feel like it's an avenue to, you know, breach their privacy. So it's a challenge that I think a lot of, you know, manufacturing logistics companies face when figuring out how to get them to interact with tools, particularly around communication. Now we've touched on quite a bit of this, but I just wanted to set the stage for the alternative communication methods and you know, what challenges they bring about. Obviously, time is a factor. You know, tracking is a factor. You know, reach is obviously a big factor. We talked about you know, first, second, and some of you third shift, trying to get the word out to you know, people who are on site as well as people who are at home. Um, and then obviously, I think something that's shared among all of the sort of legacy or alternative methods is you're always going to have language limitations. And we found that, you know, at times as many as 30% or more of frontline workforces or are more comfortable reading and or communicating in a language other than English. So it becomes really challenging for you to accommodate and plan for all of those languages and making sure that everyone is receiving your messages, understanding them, and can act on them or acknowledge them. What are the implications of people either missing messages or not understanding the messages that you're sending? We've obviously mentioned quite a few of these, and there's a lot more. You know, James pointed out that you know, compliance is multi-layered, and some of it is just around, you know, whether you sent a message or someone received it. So obviously there are the financial risks of, you know, downtime or, you know, not having your lines or your machines staffed to capacity. There's, of course, you know, uncertainty and just confusion that can also impact you know, output and you know, your targets. There's one that I think a lot of people don't think about, which is turnover. You know, unengaged employees are much more likely to be absent, and they're much more likely to quit or to go dark. And so you want to, you know, keep them engaged and keep them feeling a part of the community. And then, of course, there are other metrics and goals that I'm sure a lot of you in both HR and operations aspire to that are severely hindered by having, you know, unengaged and you know, employees that are not participating in surveys or you know, your benefits and insurance and things of that nature. So why text messaging? It seems counterintuitive, I think, to some people that we would go back to technology that we've had for, 30 plus years. But you'll find that it presents some opportunities that I think nothing else gives us. First, for employees, I think it's highly accessible and familiar to them. They don't have to download an app. They don't have to remember a username or a password or reset it when they, need access to information. They can always go back to that message thread. They can separate the, whatever they're receiving from work from their personal information and everything else on their device. And then, of course, they feel more tapped in and more informed. We find that text message open rates average 98%, with most messages read in under 5 minutes. That's something that you absolutely cannot get with any other form of communication, at least today, and I would bet ever in the future. And then for you all and your teams, the potential, what you can accomplish given, using this medium to communicate, agility, and speed. So being able to reach your entire frontline population or just the people who need to know, in, minutes is at the far end. I would argue it's, potentially a minute. This is the method that will give you the best delivery rates, the highest and fastest read rates. You can include links, whereas, announcements or posters, you cannot. And of course, we've mentioned the all-important audit trail. So proving that you sent it, proving that it was delivered, and everything else that goes along with that. We find that team census messages specifically are read within 3 minutes for the vast majority of them. And hourly employees are 3 to 4 times more likely to respond to an SMS message than they are to a notification in an app or an email. How can you use, SMS and specifically TeamSense Communicate? The first I think we've talked about is shift scheduling, but we have emergency alerts, we have safety reminders, we have benefits enrollment as well as open enrollment reminders, and we have policy updates. There's also onboarding, training, recognition and engagement, celebrating employees or wishing them happy birthday. Just general announcements that you need to get out to your employee population. And then, some of our panelists and customers also use it for, approval of vacation, or, you are, you're in danger. You have too many attendance points. It's, in some cases, the surest way to communicate that.
Yeah, amazing. Super excited to hear your stories. And Marissa, Samantha, I told you guys you were up if you had an answer. I would love to hear some of the stories of how you've used TeamSense Communicate to reach your team.
Sure. So yeah, this is a really good one for us as a union shop. So contractually, there are certain things that we need to do to stay compliant with our union contract, and TeamSense Communicate has definitely helped us to reach every employee. So the union isn't kicking back and saying, "Well, this employee didn't show up because of XYZ." And then, like someone mentioned earlier, it just helps us to stay compliant as well. And then in addition to what I already mentioned, we do send out little tips and reminders like we saw on the slideshow earlier, like, hey, our bid roster is out, which is also on TeamSense now. I'm very proud of it, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, otherwise, I think that sums it up. Do you have anything to add, Sam?
I'd say like the contractual part. It also helps like on the weekends, since we are a union facility, if they have to cancel overtime, if someone shows up, you got to pay them. So it's nice to be able to cancel it and be like, hey, don't come in, or you know, requirements for posting overtime in case in the future, if that ever like it's messed up in any type of way, we can mass communicate with everyone and fix the error, and hopefully get it done in time where we don't have any grievances.
Sure.
The tracking of the communication is important too. Like when I'm in step 2s with the union doing grievances, it is nice to have a trail of like, hey, well, we communicated that with them. Unfortunately, you know, they didn't listen, or they didn't, you know, follow the directions, but it's helpful with that on compliance as well. And then we also have like for anyone else on a union shop, like we have our contract posted in our portal so employees can reference that as needed. Then I find that very helpful for them as well.
Oh, one more thing that I want to add before I give up the mic.
No, it's all yours. Go for it.
From a recruiting standpoint, we also use that communicate feature to send out little touch point surveys. It's super difficult, as you can imagine, to kind of gauge how new hires are doing when you have 4 plants, 1,400 employees. So this helps me to have all the data in one area to see where I need to improve, whether it's my orientation, whether it's a specific supervisor, things like that. The communicate feature makes it a lot easier to get important feedback like that.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you for adding that. What's interesting to me about what both of you said is you both mentioned the union. Could you tell me just a little bit about, or tell us a little bit about how the union has reacted to SMS? I hear sometimes in conversation a little bit of hesitation about how SMS and unions, like where those things collide, and some hesitancy. How has the union felt about SMS or text being a communication channel that you guys have leaned on so heavily?
I think for the most part, they were pretty hesitant at first, from my understanding, but after seeing the impact and how it does streamline communication more effectively than they could have anticipated, it's something that they've kind of they've adopted it, they've accepted it.
Especially for like like you mentioned, apps. We do have like an app as well that we have. People do not like to download it. So it's helpful for some of the people that are not as tech savvy, but they do know how to send text messages. So I think it helps us reach a wider audience as far as communication goes.
For all company union, we have the same goal to make sure that our employees are, you know, enjoying their job, that we are, you know, communicating the best that we can. So definitely helps.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, just like any change, right? Like even positive change is often initially met with resistance, but power through. People see like positive impact to them. It quickly can kind of change their perception. Thank you both for expounding. I see a couple other hands. James, what are your success stories? What have you done to communicate effectively with your teams?
TeamSense has been really pivotal for us from an attendance management perspective, not just for the call out reason, but with our integration, our folks are seeing their points, the number of attendance points they have at the moment that they're calling out. So before they make that conscious decision to call out, they're really given the opportunity to stop and think, am I prepared to accept the attendance point that I may get as a result of calling out today? So that's been really helpful. The second piece to that, though, has been our ability to kind of track that and identify what days of the week are we seeing the most call outs, and we begin adjusting our schedules and staffing levels based on that. So I know while this particular question is talking about the communication end and the end user experience, on the back side of that experience is our ability to kind of monitor and pivot when we see staffing levels are, on Tuesdays we have the highest call out days. Well, that means Tuesdays we should plan to overstaff, anticipating more call outs on Tuesdays than any other day of the week.
Yeah, that really speaks to some of those impact opportunities, James. So thank you for kind of seeing the question and naturally taking it there. Appreciate that, the sentiment and the feedback there. Sharieffe and Deede, I know your hand went up and down. I'll love to hear from you next, but Sharieffe, since you held your hand up the longest, it's probably getting tired. You can go next. How about you, Sharieffe? You're on mute, brother.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. But Deede did have hers up a little longer, but she just threw it back down just now. And I'll keep mine short because based off the time frame. But just to touch a little bit on James, the transparency of it. He touched a little bit on the points. So they have and I like it due to the fact that we not the only ones in control. They have the transparency to trace or track what they actually did, the call outs, the lates, the write-ups, or whatever it may be. They have that ability to see their history. So it's hard to dispute anything when it is brought up.
Yeah.
As long as it's all recordable within there. So they have that compliance, they have their own records and everything there. So it helps us basically not only to keep control of that, but it also helps them keep control of it. So they have that understanding of it. And I just think somebody's picking on them because they have a history of it. Because, employees quick to say somebody picking on me. But so it works in that sense too. Favorable for them also. It's as well as it is for the company. So I cut that one short and thank you.
Nah, thank you. Succinct, but impactful, Sharieffe. I appreciate that. Deede.
Yes. So one of the ways that has not yet been mentioned is for severe weather. So we had to experience this in January of this year. Again, think where our communications are minimal, right? And so we're like, how are we going to do this? Our lines have been installed, but we don't have extensions. We don't have a lot of different things going on. So it's like, okay, you know what? Here's what we can do. We've got all of our frontline workers loaded into the system. We as HR went back and loaded our office personnel in. Of course, we've got our groups set up and we were able to communicate to everybody on all shifts, first, second, and third. The closure of our building because, the state of Indiana was shut down for, I think, almost 2 days for inclement weather this past winter. So we were able to do that and then alert everybody when the office would be opening up again and to stay posted to that. Now, from that experience, one of our greatest takeaways was, you know what? We need something else so that people can identify that they're safe. So we put in a communicate that says, mark yourself safe, so that we can send that out to them and they can identify. So if we were to have, not that this one has happened, and I'm going to knock on wood that it doesn't, but if we had a tornado strike or even a fire on site, something like that, we can send out a mass text saying, hey, everybody, mark yourself safe, let us know, and reach our folks that way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll knock on wood with you. And in the event, something does happen, you're prepared. So thank you for that, Deede. Those are great examples. I've definitely seen that example a handful of times and really effective, to make sure people are safe or to make sure people are aware of how, natural disasters are affecting their work. It matters and people need to know.
Our next topic is just, how you do it and sort of what the technology offers you. So translation, I think, is a big one. We've talked about targeting, links, forms, and surveys for sure. And of course, the audit log. I'm going to let you guys talk while I launch this survey. But the next question is just how has using Communicate's unique features made your team more effective or efficient? So I will, pose that to the panel and to you, Adam, to moderate.
Yeah, amazing. And I saw as well in the chat, I don't know if the chat's viewable to everybody, but Analia, I hope I'm saying that right, put in the chat, she kind of mentioned her population being largely Latino. And interestingly enough, TeamSense just launched the ability to have all this communicate stuff that the panelists are speaking about translated into up to 30 different languages. And I know in the interest of time, Stuart kind of breezed past that, but language translation automatically is now available, and excited to see what our customers can unlock with that capability. I see hands up for Stuart's last question. And like I said, want to hear as much as we can from the panelists. So Marissa, Samantha, what's on your mind? What are you thinking?
Well, I just want to talk about my bid roster that I mentioned earlier.
Yes, I can't wait to hear about it.
So the way we were doing it is it was a big white binder. It had every job listed at every plant. It was just inconvenient, silly, not modern, definitely a room for improvement. So what I did is I had TeamSense create it into a survey. So it's a short 3-question survey. What's your seniority date? What department do you want to bid on? What shift do you want to go to? What job? And then that's it. And everything is so nicely entered into a beautiful Excel spreadsheet. I don't have to worry about whether that's the letter R, the letter T, or what they're trying to do. It just takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. And yeah, that's been a major help to me on my end. And then another fun thing that I made you guys do, we have a lot of orientations, we have a lot of trainings, and it can be hard to keep track of sometimes. And like I mentioned, I hate pen and paper. So I made another survey, or rather TeamSense did, that was super helpful. New hires or current employees that are in training, they just text the word here, and then I give them a little pin just to verify, and then it spits out into an Excel spreadsheet. So there's no real mystery as to whether they were here or not. And I don't have to worry about more papers in my desk to lose.
Oh man, Marissa, I appreciate your passion. Like it comes through the screen,
Thank you.
and it's amazing. But you do need to stop saying that TeamSense did this. I know a lot of you have met or heard of our founder and CEO, Sheila Stafford, and I've heard her say a handful of times, and it just resonates that TeamSense isn't great. TeamSense enables great people to do great things. And so, Marissa, that's you being awesome, like looking at the white binder and being like, that ain't happening anymore. There's a different way to do it, and putting your brilliance on top of the tools that you have available to you and doing amazing things. So no more saying it was us, because it was you. Sharieffe, share with us some of your thoughts.
Okay, mine's pertaining to the diversity in the language. Now here we have Creole, we have Latino, and we have Arabic. So TeamSense is definitely come into play when we do that communication factor, because, you know, when everybody ain't their first language ain't English, so they have a hard time in the communicating factor. So when we could translate that through TeamSense, it help us is a very great benefit for the diversity. Once you have that diversity and you could translate any updates, any scheduling, any safety issues, any bad weather, anything of that nature, you can communicate through TeamSense. So it definitely, the answer is Anelia. I might be saying that wrong. Anelia. Question as far as the Latino people that she have at her plant, but it definitely helps a lot when you can translate it through their language, so they can have a clear understanding of what you're asking them or telling them. That would be it.
Yeah, Sharieffe, my understanding is that you've gotten an opportunity to kind of be on the leading edge, right? You've got access to the translation capabilities before anybody else, kind of being an early adopter here of TeamSense.
Yes, we got it early because we definitely brought it up, and y'all had it already in place, so y'all delivered that. But yes, it definitely worked wonders, and it's definitely a good tool to have, especially when you have diverse and you can set it to whoever need that language or that barrier to present to whatever you need as far as communication goes. And they also, when they send out messages, it comes through and translate and convert back to English. So it's definitely a good tool to have.
Absolutely. We've got just a handful of minutes left, and I'm going to open this up to everybody. It's probably my favorite question. What has been the most surprising thing to you since you've had access to, started using TeamSense? Like what does TeamSense do for you that you weren't expecting? That's what I'd be, and I know it's kind of like a little bit of an ambiguous question, but often where the most colorful answers come from. And Deede, I see you. You've got it. It's happening. What's been the most surprising, impactful thing for you? You didn't expect.
Right. This is totally, and again, we're startup. So I lay the story so that everybody can understand this isn't the only implementation process that we've gone through in the last 12 months. Though I believe you guys were either the first or the second that we started as an organization. I say this because the greatest surprise that that really just knocked my socks off, so to speak, is your team's ability to seek feedback from us as clients and customers and improve on whatever it is we were needing. So if it was in the ability, I know Kirk is our customer success manager, and I'm always in communication with him, and he's like, what can we do better? How can we help? And it's that type of service that really elevated this, and the ability to follow through. Here are the changes that we made. Your ability to put the auto translate in here. I'm sure there are 3 or 4 more items that I'm totally forgetting about, that you guys have approved upon, just because as a client, we recommended or said, hey, can you do this for us? And you were able to help us.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the feedback. It's the only way we get better in relevant, meaningful ways. So thank you. Thank you, Deede. Marissa, Samantha?
Yeah, so my most surprising thing that I learned about TeamSense. So it is so easy to use. Like I could hand this off to anyone if I were to step away from my job, and it would be so easy for them to take on. It is easy to onboard new people into it, which is super helpful when I'm hiring 20 or so people a week. But yeah, I just really like the ease of use and how easy it is to customize it and personalize it to fit our company.
Thank you for that. And Stuart, I would imagine we're going to get to some Q&A from the audience, and I want to leave a second for that. James, 15, 20 seconds, most surprising.
The two-way communication piece. Even though I've been using the tool for 2 years, one of my generalists last week called out. She said, hey, we were just questioning, hey, did this guy ever respond? Did he call in? What's the story? Oh, I don't know. Pull up the dashboard, go into the communication tool, and there it is. They had in fact responded. So, which is a surprise. And to my colleague's point, the customer service that we receive from your group, Adam, you and Sarah take very good care of us, and we definitely appreciate you here over at Kenco.
Oh, thank you. Shout out Kirk and Sarah. If you're here with us or you hear the recording, they're amazing. They're amazing. I know we're right at time, so this goes for panelists as well. I know you're in logistics, manufacturing. If you got to jump and go do your thing, we totally get it. Folks joining us online, if you got to jump, that's okay as well, because we'll send out a recording. But Stuart, is there any Q&A that we're getting outside of what's appeared in the chat already?
I think the best question was, and I think we've touched on this, but there may be some other answers. How can you tell when employees are reading or not reading messages?
I think that's relatively new. Stuart, maybe you've got something that you could share with the audience there. I know, Sharieffe, you gave us some of that insight though, right? You said, hey, we know they're reading it because they come and they ask for clarifying questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, most definitely. So when you bring up a point, now individuals, when they don't have a clarity on the text, usually they come back and ask. There is no key point that you could put where you could look at a person's name and highlight to see if they actually read the message, but you do get the understanding that they read it when they come back and ask for clarity on that text that you send out. And myself, we practice meetings every Wednesday. Actually, I missed my meeting, but HR did it. So, Darlene took care of that for me. But we have those group meetings. So once we send out them text messages or the compliance things on safety or our rules of behavior, code of conduct and things of that. And then when we bring it up, people have feedback and ask questions. When we send out the questionnaires, for participation in certain events that we have coming up or certain awareness things that we have going on in the building. We send it through those text messages. And therefore, when we do have these team meetings or these team gatherings, people bring those questions up and they like to ask for clarity on certain things once we communicate it through the text. And it's utilized for multiple things. So once they get familiar with it, we still do paper vacation requests and stuff like that. But once some get familiar with it, then we also have ones who request through Team Sense, they PTOs, they vacation. The more tech savvy, as brought up by Samantha, Marissa earlier, they start utilizing that more. So they get more engaged into it once they get familiar with it. But for the most part, I say about 99% of our people utilize it. So we got a couple in here that's probably like 60 plus, no offense to the older generation, but they don't like using text messages like that. But 99% of them do. So within our facility. And so technically I got one guy, but 99% of them do. They love the Team Sense. They love utilizing it for their requests. They love tracking their attendance through that, and they love the communication factor because they can remember to bring up questions, because sometimes we tend to forget certain things during that moment until you can make reference back to those text messages.
So Sharieffe will put that 99% to the test here with the new functionality and communicate. Thank you so much for that story.
Someone asked to follow up, but we have no way to confirm, assuming is dangerous. And there are several ways, like, policy acknowledgements, I think are the biggest one. So if you're sending out policy and because of union or, compliance rules, you need to make sure that people have read it, you include a link to a form that forces people to say, I've read this and I understand and acknowledge it. That's, one way. Apps, surveys and things of that nature are also really good ways to make sure that people have read a message. If they click the link and do the survey, it means that they definitely read the message. And sometimes that's used just to confirm that they read the message. There is another question. How do you ensure the right employees get the right messages?
Go for it, Deede.
Awesome. I will. I would say that comes down to setting up your groups and your you need to make sure your divisions are set up correctly, and then within your divisions you're going to set up your groups. So your groups are like I set up for my first shift, second shift, third shift, but then I'll also have first, second, third shift supervisors, all supervisors, so that I can narrow it down. So yeah, you have a lot of groups, but that's because you want to be able to communicate very specifically to this subgroup of employees or management, however you want to look at it. So that is how you would single that down. Also, within the communicate feature, you can send it to the whole company, to a select group, select division, and then you can also select by individual employees. Obviously, that's when you want to keep individuals to a minimal list. You're doing that one-on-one reach out. But your grouping is your best bet.
Yeah, you've done an amazing job setting the system up in a way to reach the groups that you've needed and target that message. Eliminate the noise, right? Like people get overwhelmed or just like start to ignore it if it's irrelevant. So, only sending messages that are relevant to relevant people, super important to maintain kind of the confidence from your
Absolutely.
employees.
I mean, we went so deep, Adam, that and you can ask your team, because I was like, no, I want to even get more specific. I took it down to my maintenance team, to my distribution team, to my quality team, my sanitation team, because I didn't want the maintenance team to be receiving messages from third shift quality if they had issues. So it becomes vital to do that kind of grouping so that you can reach the right audience, and people aren't just blowing, as you said, blowing off your text message because it's not relevant to them any longer.
If we still have time, there is one more question. What kinds of messages get the most responses, and the best responses?
We have audience members that are curious from you super users what the effective strategies are. Yeah, Sharieffe, let's tell them, school them up here.
The most best messages we get is basically when we throw an event. When we take a survey on what type of food you would like for this event, or let's have a survey on what we could do for a company picnic or things of that nature. Those ones seem to get the most responses. Definitely when we have an event. Bowling, we do bowling night. Sometimes we have those events for our people because we are a small facility. Like I said, in this particular facility, 60. I don't know if that will comply if you got 100 plus 800, 900 people, they can't fit in that bowling alley. But so we do have those for the most participants when you throw an event, something that they like.
Yeah. Food motivated folks. I would respond to that message, Sharieffe. So I get it. Any others? Marissa, Samantha, Deede, what gets the most response from your teams?
Nope, I would have to say it's the food events, definitely. The open house event, we held one, communicated. So it's definitely the events that are getting the responses.
I would say the only other one besides food and fun things is when we cancel overtime. We get people making sure that it is canceled. So that they read it, they respond, because we get a lot of phone calls about it. But yeah, mostly the food.
They want to go eat food and have fun on their own time. If they're not going to be doing it, working overtime, stamping bumpers. I hear you.
They want to make sure they're not getting pointed and that text message was real. It's real.